Nagkape na ba kayo?
In this video, we are going to study the causes and classes of fire, as well as the types of fire extinguishers to be used during a fire. We are also going to talk about how to use it. So these are the learning competencies and the specific learning outcomes. Now let's start with the usual and unusual causes of fire. The Bureau of Fire Protection Operational Procedures Manual has listed down the causes of fire as follows. First, we have the faulty electrical wiring or connection. Most electrical fires are caused by faulty electrical outlets and old, outdated appliances. Now, other fires are started by faults in appliance cords, receptacles, and switches. Next, we have the LPG related fires. So, your liquid petroleum gas may leak as a gas or a liquid. Now, if the liquid leaks, it will quickly evaporate and form a relatively large cloud of gas, which will drop to the ground, as it is heavier than air. Now, LPG vapors can run for long distances along the ground and can collect drains or basements. So, when the gas meets a source of ignition, it can burn or explode. Then we have neglected cooking stove. So unattended cooking is the leading cause of fire-related accidents taking place in homes around the world. Because in today's busy world, it's easy to get distracted by situations that grab your attention away from cooking for longer than intended. Okay? We also have cigarette butt, unattended open flame, like a torch or sulo in Filipino, and unattended open flame, candle or gasera. Okay, we also have matchsticks and lighter.
Tama na! Tama na!
Another one is direct flame contact or static electricity. Static electricity accumulates due to friction. Due to the friction, an imbalance in electrical charge begins to build up, resulting in a momentary shock. So, if you know how electrons work, then this explanation should make sense to you with no need for scientific knowledge. Because again, because again, static electricity can generate sparks, and sparks could cause an explosion in the wrong setting. So if you work near explosives or other flammable materials, you must be exceedingly careful. Next, we have neglected electrical appliances or devices. Okay, so you have your humidifiers, air conditioners, electric fans, etc. Followed by electrical machineries, and we also have chemicals. So at room temperature, ammonia is a colorless, highly irritating gas with a pungent, suffocating odor. So ammonia is actually not highly flammable, but containers of ammonia may explode when exposed to high heat. Okay? Next, we have the incendiary device or ignited flammable liquid, as you can see here in the picture. So it's a Molotov, right? So incendiary weapons, incendiary devices, or incendiary bombs are weapons designed to start fires or destroy sensitive equipment using fire, and sometimes used as anti-personnel weaponry. Next, we also have spontaneous combustion. Spontaneous combustion is the phenomenon in which a hydrocarbon or a chemical substance unexpectedly bursts into flame without apparent cause. So, in ordinary combustion, the hydrocarbon is deliberately heated to its ignition point to make it burn. During this process, many hydrocarbons undergo slow oxidation that, like the rapid oxidation of burning, releases heat. If the heat so released cannot escape, the temperature of the hydrocarbon rises until ignition takes place. Okay, so spontaneous combustion often occurs in piles of hydrocarbon soaked or oily rags and can constitute a serious fire hazard. Next, we have the pyrotechniques. So if you were able to attend concerts, right, you can see this. There are times that this causes fire. followed by bomb explosion, lightning. Others include forest fire, vehicular fire, etc. Now, with all these different causes, how can we tell what's flammable or not? We actually have the NFPA classification system. NFPA stands for National Fire Protection Association. Here, you will see the NFPA diamond. So the NFPA diamond is an easy way to determine the safety risks associated with hazardous materials. Now, to determine a material's flammability, you have to refer to the red section of the diamond. So it says there, fire hazard. So a number in this section will indicate the flammability rating of a material. So the following number system is used to indicate flammability. Okay, so you have number 4, very flammable. Number 3, ignites under normal temperature conditions. Number 2 ignites with moderate heating. Number 1 ignites when preheated. And if it's 0, means it's not flammable. Okay, for example, you see this container. So the red one has a number 3, meaning it ignites under normal temperature conditions. So it's below 73 degrees Celsius. So each fire class is based on the fuel that they burn. This classification is very useful in order to determine what substances or chemicals are effective in extinguishing the fire, which we will discuss later. Okay? Now there are 5 classes of fire. First, the Class A. Class A fires are fires in ordinary combustibles such as wood, paper, cloth, rubber, and many plastics, or basically anything that leaves ash. Okay. Next, we have Class B. Class B fires are fires in flammable liquids such as gasoline, petroleum, greases, tars, oils, oil-based paints, solvents, alcohols. Class B fires also include flammable gases such as propane and butane. They do not include fires involving cooking oils and grease. Okay? Next, we go to Class C fires. Class C fires are fires involving energized electrical equipment such as computers, servers, motors, transformers, and appliances. So take note, energized electrical equipment. If you remove the power, the Class C fire becomes one of the other classes of fire. Next, we have Class D fires. These are fires in combustible metals such as magnesium, titanium, zirconium, sodium, lithium, and potassium. So potassium in chemistry, if you do the flame test, it will produce a violet flame. And lastly, we have the class K. So class K fires are fires in cooking oils and greases, such as animal and vegetable fats. Now with all these classes of fire, how do we remove them? What type of fire extinguisher do we need to remove the fire?
Ang daming gagawin!
Let's discuss the types of fire extinguishers. So we have 8 of them. So these types of fire extinguisher extinguish the fire by taking away the heat element of the fire triangle. So it also separates the oxygen element from the other elements. So this type of fire extinguisher are for Class A fires only. They should not be used on Class B or Class C fires. Why? Because the discharge stream could spread the flammable liquid in Class B fire or could create a shock hazard on Class C fire. Next, we have the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. So, carbon dioxide fire extinguisher extinguish fire by taking away the oxygen element of the fire triangle and also be removing the heat with a very cold discharge. CO2 can be used on Class B and Class C fires. They are usually ineffective on Class A fires. Next, we have the dry chemical. The dry chemical interrupts the chemical reaction of the fire triangle. Today's most widely used type of fire extinguisher is the multi-purpose dry chemical that is effective on Class A, B, and C fires. So this agent also works by creating a barrier between the oxygen element and the fuel element on Class A fires. Ordinary dry chemical is for Class B and C fires only. Now, you have to remember that it is important to use the correct extinguisher for the type of fuel. Using the incorrect agent can allow the fire to reignite after apparently being extinguished successfully. Okay? Following the dry chemical, of course, we have the wet chemical. Wet chemical is a new agent that extinguishes the fire by removing the heat of the fire triangle and prevents the reignition by creating a barrier between the oxygen and fuel elements. Wet chemical of Class K extinguishers were developed for modern, high-efficiency deep-fat fryers in commercial cooking operations. Some of these may also be used on Class A fires in commercial kitchens. Next, let's have the clean agent fire extinguisher. Halogenated or clean agent extinguishers include the halon agents, as well as the newer and less ozone depleting halocarbon agents. So they extinguish the fire by interrupting the chemical reaction and or removing the heat from the fire triangle. Clean agent extinguishers are effective on Class A, B, and C fires. Smaller sized handheld extinguishers are not large enough to obtain a 1A rating and may carry only a Class B and C rating. So if you are curious, halon is a quote-unquote clean agent. Okay, so the NFPA defines a clean agent as an electrically non-conducting volatile or gaseous fire extinguishant that does not leave a residue upon evaporation. So halon is basically a liquefied compressed gas that stops the spread of fire by chemically disrupting combustion. Because halon is a CFC, production of new halon ceased in 1994. Okay. Next, we have the dry powder. The dry powder extinguishers are similar to dry chemical, except that they extinguish the fire by separating the fuel from the oxygen element or by removing the heat element of the fire triangle. Lastly, we have the cartridge-operated dry chemical fire extinguishers, which can extinguish the fire primarily by interrupting the chemical reaction of the fire triangle. Like the stored pressure dry chemical extinguishers, the multipurpose dry chemical is effective on Class A, B, and C fires. This agent also works by creating a barrier between the oxygen element and the fuel element on Class A fires. Okay, now that we know the different types of fire extinguishers, what do we do with it during fire emergencies?
Na-stress ka ba?
First, it is important to know the locations and the types of fire extinguishers in your workplace prior to actually using one. Okay? Fire extinguishers can be heavy, so it's a good idea to practice picking up and holding an extinguisher to get an idea of the weight and feel. Next, take time to read. Read the operating instructions and warnings found on the fire extinguisher label. Remember, not all fire extinguishers look alike. Lastly, you have to practice releasing the discharge hose or horn and aiming it at the base of an imagined fire. Do not pull the pin or squeeze the lever because this will break the extinguisher seal and cause it to lose pressure. Now, when it is time to use the fire extinguisher on a fire, just remember pass. P for pull the pin. A. Aim the nozzle or hose at the base of the fire from the recommended safe distance. S meaning squeeze. Squeeze the operating lever to discharge the fire extinguishing agent, and another S for sweep. So, starting at the recommended distance, sweep the nozzle or hose from side to side until the fire is out. So, move forward or around the fire area as the fire diminishes. Okay, now how do we inspect fire extinguisher? Because, of course, sometimes they lose pressure throughout the years of not using it.
Na-vertigo ako. Ikaw din?
Mm-mm.
Ako din.
First, check accessibility. Walk up to the fire extinguisher to check its visibility and accessibility. Identify if a fire extinguisher is present in the area, and take note if it is easily visible. It should not be blocked by any equipment or other objects that would make it difficult to be accessed during an emergency. Portable fire extinguishers other than wheeled types must also be secured in specific location. Next, examine the physical date. You have to pick up the extinguisher to closely check labeling, overall condition, and physical defects. Look for the fire extinguisher's serial number and check if the fire extinguisher label is readable. Now you have to check if the cylinder or any other external metal parts are free of corrosion, dents, and other signs of damage. You also have to check the connection between the hose and the cylinder if it is secured. Inspect if there are cracks in the hose or leaks in the nozzle. Lastly, you have to check if the locking pin goes through the holes of discharge lever and the handle. Okay, check if the pin is secured well by the seal. Pin locks the discharge lever and prevents accidental discharge. Lastly, you have to check the pressure gauge. You have to examine where the gauge needle is. A needle within the green zone is good. A needle in the left red zone means that the fire extinguisher is under charge and warrants recharge, while a needle in the right zone signals a danger of being overcharged. Then you have to look for the inspection tag. Okay? Note if an inspection tag is available. The tag should indicate that the fire extinguisher is regularly inspected. And lastly, you have to generate report and recommend action plans. Okay, so once done with the inspection, summarize observations or action plan. Make sure to sign off on the fire extinguisher inspection tag if available with your name, signature, and date of inspection.
At yun ay tuldok